If the Mona Lisa had never been displayed, never hung in a museum, never stolen, never photographed, would it still be as famous as it is today? Or would it just be another painting sitting quietly in a studio? In the year 1911, when it was stolen from the Louvre, the world panicked. And strangely enough, that theft made it more valuable, more talked about, more legendary. So, what makes art meaningful? Is it the work itself, or is it the attention around it? We live in a world where everyone wants to be seen, but I'm starting to wonder, is being seen what gives art its value? I mean, if no one sees your art, does it matter less? Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. It's a fine day, and today we have a vanilla milk tea as the drink for the day. I've been exploring different drinks and I've never been a fan of milk tea as much, but today we're gonna try it. I've been thinking about how art is different nowadays versus in the past, how art is interpreted, how art is relayed, the medium through which we convey our art to others is so much different than it was in the past. In the past, art was more of a ritual, it was documentation, it was even survival in some way. People of the past used to draw their civilizations on rocks, hoping that they can be able to preserve their past in a way so that the people of the future, who are us, could be able to tell what kind of civilizations they had in the past. Art was devotion, painting, sculpting, creating sculptures of gods and goddesses. Michelangelo's sculptures, they were devotion. They were a form of ritual, and art had so much meaning back in the past. I'm not saying these days art doesn't have much meaning, but the medium through which we relay art has kind of changed things. Art doesn't feel as original as it used to feel. Art doesn't feel as emotional as it used to feel. Art's traditional role in the past was ritual and authenticity. I'm going to be making some references to a 1935 essay by Walter Benjamin, and the essay is known as The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. And basically, Walter Benjamin was talking about how photography had changed the way art was interpreted. Simply being able to take a photo of a picture of art, a famous work of art, and mass reproducing up to 1,000+ copies of the piece of art, made it feel less special than it actually was. It changed the interpretation of the art. Nowadays, social media and photography and all these mechanical reproduction methods have made art so much more accessible than it was before, such that almost everyone in the world knows how the Mona Lisa looks like, but not so many people have seen it in real life. And Walter Benjamin was exploring how invention of technologies like photography and film changed the nature and the role of art. Mechanical reproduction, he said, led to a loss of aura. Now, it's not aura as we know it these days, but he instead defined aura in such a way. Art has an aura because it is a one-of-a-kind object tied to a specific time and place. It has a physical history and presence. So when you can print 1,000 copies of a piece of art, the aura decays because now it can exist in so many places in space and time. It's more accessible, and hence it loses its sacred or its ritualistic quality. That is what Walter Benjamin saw aura as. And so we live in a world where we value exhibition of art more than finding meaning and connection and sitting with a piece of art and seeing more than is being displayed just on the surface of the canvas. We value how much more the art can be seen by many people, instead of valuing the value that you get from just interacting with a piece of art. It's like we almost create to be seen and not to express ourselves. We value being seen, we value exposure, we value audience more than connection and more than intimacy. And you'd much rather have 1,000 people see a piece of art and not even really connect with it than have 5 people see and connect with your art, because numbers are what dictate whether something is good or not. That is how art is interpreted these days, and it's something that is almost just ingrained into us, because you find yourself even, or I personally used to see this in myself, whenever I was scrolling on social media. Sometimes I would not even be looking at the specific post or the specific video. I would literally just be looking at the likes and comment section and judging whether or not I will watch the video based off of that. And so if I scroll and something has 5 likes, I would pass it. And if something has 2 million likes, I would listen to it, even if I was not feeling the need to listen to it at first. And you find that mentally, we just kind of associate numbers with value. We see numbers as value. And it's easy to see why that can be the case, because even when it comes to monetary value, you associate higher numbers, currency, higher values in terms of monetary value to be more important and better off than lower values. If something is being sold at a higher price, you assume it has a higher quality. If something is being sold at a lower price, you assume the quality is lower. If you have 2 products which are the same product, but one is more priced than the other, you will assume the more priced one has a higher quality than the less priced one. And I feel like that interpretation is not just when it comes to money. It is also kind of applied to how we view the world. We view the world in terms of metrics. In a way, you find yourself judging things by how much numbers are associated with it. If someone has fewer friends, you assume that it's a judgment of their character, instead of just it being a personal decision. If someone talks to more people, you assume things about them. If someone has a wider circle of friends, you assume certain things about them compared to the person who barely has any friends. And it's like numbers are tied into how we see the world and how we judge the world. And so this comes back down, trickles all the way down to art, because social media has become the main medium through which we express our art. If you are an artist in this day and age, you have to somehow have a social media platform for you to have your art be pushed to bigger audiences. And we get that because social media is what makes things much more accessible than before. Your art from where you're seated in your room can reach to people miles away in all corners of the earth. You can be able to reach people with your art. But with this accessibility also comes the judgment by metrics. You find that you judge your art based on how many people have seen it, how many people have liked it, saved it, shared it. All the little numbers on the screen are the reasons that you use to judge your art, to say whether your art is good, whether your art is bad, whether you need to improve on your art or you don't need to improve on your art. And the reason why I think this is so wrong is I have so many reasons actually, because art is not just something that you can summarize into metrics. And I feel like that is what we do today. And we are losing the connection to art. We are losing the real meaning of art by basing it off of numbers. Let's look at social media and how it's influenced art and the artist, because the artist and the art are disconnected. And also the art and whoever receives it are also connected. I've noticed that some art these days feels real and some art doesn't. It's more like you find yourself connecting to specific pieces of media, content, art. It can be actual art like sketches and drawing and physical drawings, or it can be art like music, something auditory. It can be fashion. It can be just art is very wide, and diverse. But you find that some art feels more real and you feel more connected to it than other pieces of art. And modern technology makes that feeling of realness harder to hold on to. Even off the top of my head, if I try and think about creators who create things which feel real to me, they're only countable on one hand. I cannot count it on 2 hands. It's just less than 5 creators who create things which I feel are so real and so authentic and so original and so them, And social media now makes this feeling harder to hold on to, because it's like everything you see, every piece of art and content and music is somehow being optimized for just maximum engagement, maximum views, maximum everything. When I started doing content is when I realized how there's so much you need to craft, even in your delivery of a message, like the way you start a conversation, the first line you say in a video has so much weight. And that's because, our attention spans have just become less, and we're not willing to listen to something until we see whether or not we want to listen to it. We are just waiting for the first trigger, the first sentence. If it's something interesting, we will listen. If it's not, we will not listen. And I get that our fried brain cells is what has led to this over curation of art and formation of so many small rules on how you're supposed to create. I was so surprised actually, because I just came to realize that you need to have a hook, you need to have something clickbaity, you need to attract the attention of the one who is coming to interact with your art. And I followed up with this, I followed the rules, I tried to keep up with them, tried to use the hooks, tried to edit in a way that attracts attention, but I found that it made my art to me feel watered down and feel less me and more crafted for the social media presence, more crafted for the eye, more crafted for the algorithm. I didn't really feel as connected to it. And this slowly trickled down to me feeling burnt out and me not wanting to create art. And this led to me feeling miserable, because art is a way of life for me. It's something that I do to make myself feel excited for life, to make myself feel ready to explore, to make myself feel enchanted in a way. And so having to follow tiny, tiny rules to satisfy the algorithm led to me not creating art and me directly impacting my own view of life. And that's why social media is just devastating. Because in the past, art was a ritual. It was not something that you had to do for other people to see. You did it because it enriched your life. It made your life better. It made you connect with yourself, connect with maybe your spirituality, connect with a certain aspect of you, connect with a certain aspect of someone else. Art was made for the sake of expression and for the sake of life itself. But these days, art is for the sake of exposure and being seen. Art was never valued by how much it was seen. It was valued by its simple existence. That's why I ask, if the Mona Lisa never was put in a museum, would it still be worth the same worth it is today? And the funny bit is, we even base the worth of the piece of art in monetary terms. Like when you say the worth of the Mona Lisa, when you go online and you Google, how much is the Mona Lisa worth, or what is the worth of the Mona Lisa, you will get a currency. Numbers sort of rule our perception of things. And if something is pricey, as we've said before, if something is pricey, we consider it to be of higher value. Money is the currency of value. And so if the Mona Lisa had not been put in a museum, if it stayed in Leonardo da Vinci's apartment or wherever he stayed, I don't know the history of the guy, but if it was never exposed, would it still be worth the same it is worth today? And I don't know how to even put this, because when I say would it still be worth the same it's worth today, I don't mean in terms of monetary value. But when you think about it, what is the Mona Lisa worth if it's not in terms of currency? Can you base its worth on something else? Personally, I don't think I can, because I've never actually seen it. I think social media has just ruined the perception of art, because these days I see the Mona Lisa in so many different forms. I see the Mona Lisa having a mustache. I see her in different poses. Like, people are taking the art and the piece that someone created with the heart, soul, and mind and turning it into a meme, turning it into something funny. And it's not right. I am so very much against that. And even thinking about the fact that art is able to be accessible to the masses by use of photography and social media, it feels good that I get to see the pieces of art from the comfort of my home, but it also makes me feel less connected to them. I just know that the Mona Lisa is a famous piece. I don't have any connection to the art. And if I am to go and see it at the museum, it's likely because I know it's a famous piece, not because I'm even connected to it. Maybe after seeing it, I will feel some sense of connection to the art, find my own interpretation of it, and I can now place a worth on the Mona Lisa based off how I am connecting to it. Is it even right to say that you can base the worth of a piece of art? I don't know. That's a critical question, because can someone really base the creation of someone else and say, this is worth this much, it's this good, it's this bad? I don't think so. Art is subjective, right? Art used to be more of a private monument to the fact that the creator of that piece of art occupied a space in the universe. It was not something that was made for being seen. It was created in caves. In caves, the cavemen would scratch onto the walls and draw tiny figures, trying to explain their civilizations, trying to explain how their lives were. And it was not something that was made for exposure. But the social media, the modern world, I just said the social media like a boomer, but yeah, the social media and the modern world has made art be for exposure and for being seen. And I love how Benjamin, the writer of the book, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, I love how he says that while a photograph captures a moment, it destroys the uniqueness of that moment. It turns your experience of a moment into a commodity that can be copied infinitely. That's a really fun take, and it's something so interesting to muse on. Just in case you feel like you'd want to get into the deep of it, please get the book, read it. I think you can even read it online. But it's so true. When you take a photograph, yes, it captures the moment, but at the same time, it lowers or reduces the uniqueness of the moment. When you capture it and it's on your phone, it's kind of reduced the uniqueness of the moment. But once you share it to someone or you post it somewhere, the moment is then again significantly reduced. It's like the more you expose it, the less the significance and the uniqueness of that moment. And I love how when you're tapping back into analog living, you purchase something like a digital camera and you just spend your time observing things and taking photographs, but only for solo consumption. Whenever you do something for yourself and you are not aiming to show it to anyone else, there's such a deep sense of fulfillment that you feel. And I feel like it clashes with our conditioning of this day and age that exposure is equal to validation. So when you create something and you're feeling this sense of satisfaction and sense of fulfillment after creating it, you feel like you would want to increase that sense of fulfillment by sharing it with others, maybe posting it or just putting it out there. But contrary to what you think, once you put it out there, despite how fulfilled and proud you felt of it, its worth seems to decrease the more that it is being seen. And based on whether or not it is being seen by many people. And that is very crazy. Social media has just turned art into a portfolio, into this universe that you curate for views and for validation. Your page, your social media page, is something that you arrange and you color code and you tweak and do all these little enhancements to for views, for maximum optimization, for people to like, not even for yourself, And it's so crazy. The more I think about it, the more I just keep being bummed out, because we don't realize how important art is, not just for other people, but for ourselves firstly. It's so easy nowadays to create, to prove something, to prove that you are productive, to prove that you are talented, to prove that you deserve attention, to prove something, just something, instead of creating to express something. I feel like when you're creating for expression and not to prove anything, you actually lean into the process of creation. Unlike how social media conditions people to want to be seen, creating for expression means you lean into the process of creation. What is the process of creating something? It's a process that's very messy because it involves evolving. It involves evolution from being a beginner to being better at something. There's many stages in between. And when you're creating for expression, you lean into those processes. You lean into every stage where you are imperfect, every stage where you're messy, every stage where you're learning, every single stage, even the frustrations, even the negative feelings, you lean into them and you actually use them to create art. Like when you're feeling frustrated, instead of not creating art because the art is likely to be imperfect and not perfect for views and for monetization, you actually go and take the frustration out into creating a piece of art, creating a song, creating a poem, creating music, creating something. The thing is, emotions, no matter how bad, quote unquote bad, because I don't really think we have bad emotions, but emotions, no matter how bad or negative, no matter how wrong they feel, are a source of creativity. They are a source of inspiration, because art isn't just creating from good emotions, from positive emotions. Art is a spectrum. You use all the different emotions, guilt, you use heartbreak, you use fear, anger, all these negative emotions, you use them to create art. So when you're creating art just for views and for being seen, you do not allow yourself to lean into the process of creation, such that if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're feeling a negative emotion, you will not create art at that moment. While if you are really creating for expression, you would use the feelings to channel creativity and to create something. And I feel like that's where it takes away from the experience of art, because I read this somewhere on Pinterest and it really changed my view on art. It said that whatever you create creates you. You don't just create something, it also creates you. As you paint the piece of art, it also paints you. As you create the music, it also sings back to you. Like, it is a mutual process between you and the art and the artist. It's a mutual process. Even the art and the observer of the art, there's a mutual process going on there. And so when all we see on social media is things which are perfect, curations which are perfect, you just see basically no imperfections and basically people doing it to the best of their efforts, and you don't see a representation of art that is messy, then you come to ignore the part of the process that's messy and try and downplay it instead of actually leaning into it. And if you downplay those parts, it means you're breaking the chain. You're not going through the process of creation the way you're supposed to. So the art and the artist are disconnected because the process wasn't followed clearly. Does that make any sense? I think I've tried to relay that as best as I can. But basically, art creates you. You don't just create the art also creates you. And the more you lean into creating art for optimization, for social media, and for being seen, and you forget that you're supposed to create to express, the more you ignore parts of the process of creating art that are actually meant to change you as a person, to impact you, and maybe to also impact other people. So I guess what I'm trying to say majorly from that whole statement is that it's not bad for you to create and to show the art to someone else. But when you're creating, let your focus be on expression, and let your focus be on creating something that is original and authentic, and something that mirrors maybe what you're feeling, maybe a message that you want to relay. Let the focus be on that instead of the focus being on how can I make this the most optimized for likes, for views, for creating money. How can I make this the most this, that, and the other? Focus more on how can I express? How can I create to express, not to impress? And I think metrics are important. It's important to see that someone liked your work, someone commented something, someone saved your work, someone shared your work, someone did something engaging with your work. Maybe it's a piece of music, art, content, whatever it is. Metrics are important, and I believe that metrics came or were part of the system to just show us whether or not we want to pivot, whether we want to change whatever it is we're creating, and to just show us that people are engaging with our content, and just show us how many people are engaging with our content. But at the same time, it also ties the value of your work to how much engagement you get. It ties the value of your work to how many people have interacted with it. how many have liked it, how many have tapped all the buttons. And it ties even the worth of yourself to that. Because remember, as we've said, the art and the artist are like this. They are conjoined. They are one. The art and the artist are one. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. Even if the Mona Lisa was 1,500 plus miles away from him in a museum, he was still connected to the piece of art and it was still with him wherever he was. Art and the artist are connected because the art creates the artist and the artist creates the art. The creation and the creator are always connected. And so when your creation, your art is judged by basis of metrics and all that, it leads to you being judged by those same metrics because you and the art are connected. If the algorithm doesn't push your work, if the algorithm doesn't favor your work, you end up feeling like it is you who's the problem and not the system. And this is a very critical point because when you feel like you are the problem and it's not the algorithm and the system, and you feel like your art is bad and your art is the problem just because it's not being seen, then it can lower your motivation to create your art. Lowering your motivation leads to lowering your creativity. Lowering your creativity means you will be less willing to make art, less willing to be imperfect because you've been imperfect and it's not worked out for you, so you're less willing to do it. And when you're less willing to be imperfect, you're less willing to create art, leading to you feeling miserable. An artist lives to create art. That is all I can say. An artist lives to create art. All this kind of leads us to a point where we've stopped creating to explore and we now just create to prove. We create to prove a point, to prove certain things. And we live in a world where everyone wants to be seen, but we've forgotten how to see ourselves without an audience. Being someone who puts your work out there means that you kind of base your worth on your creation and your audience and how people receive your work. You don't just base your work on that, you also base your own worth as a person on that. And it leads to a point where you forget how to see yourself. You forget how to create art for yourself and not for anyone else. You feel like everything that you create has to be seen. Everything that you create does not have enough value until it is seen. And when you put it out there and it's seen, you feel like it lessens in value. It's no longer as important to you. It's no longer connected to you as much as it was before you put it out there to be seen. And I feel like it's so important for us to remember how it feels to create for no audience, to create something that we do not want to be seen, to literally see ourselves and create for ourselves only. It's something so important because then we can drop all the rules, we can drop all the barriers. No one is watching us, no one is going to gauge our art. We are creating freely. We can be imperfect, we can be messy, we can be who we are. And that's when you create the most real art, the art which no one will see, the art which you are the only one who will get to experience, is the art that is the most real. And if you can create from that mindset of, I'm creating this for myself, and it is not going to be judged on any other metric, then you will create something that's real. And maybe after creating it, you can choose to put it out there or not. That is genuinely up to you. But going back to the point where we create for ourselves, whatever it is, yes, you can create something for yourself and still put it out there. But the first thing is, have you created it for yourself? Imagine no one else was going to see it. How would it look? How would you create it? How would you edit it? How would you do this and that to it? What would be your process? How fast would you be with creating it? How slow would you be with creating it? How much time would you take? What would you do as you created it? Would you play some music? Would you dance a little? Would you be a little more free in the process of creation? Ask yourself those questions and go back to really answering the question, why do I create and what do I want my art to create in me? And the reason why I feel like social media metrics are just a scam and a hoax is because the algorithm generally promotes specific types of formats, Like specific things are known to work more than others. So it's like if you want to be a creator and a successful one in the space, in the creative space that is social media, you have to tailor your work a certain way. And the issue is that when you tailor your work a certain way, you lose parts of it that are original, authentic, and you lose those parts trying to shape your art into something that's pleasant to the algorithm, something that the algorithm will reward. And despite how you might think that the opportunity cost for that is kind of low because you lose the originality and the real value of your work to get more views, it's not. It's a very high opportunity cost because the importance of art is not in being seen, it is in the creation of the art, as we've said. So you find that algorithms rewarding specific formats, rewarding clarity, trends, perfection, clickbait, titles and clickbait hooks, it kind of sums up what art should be into a core idea and into a set of rules. And I think art is something that is meant to be played with. You're meant to be rebellious, be a rule breaker, just do whatever you need to do just to create the art. You know, you need to be messy, you need to be imperfect, you need to just literally go at it blind, go at it without having a specific goal in mind, to not have a specific vision in mind, but to just let yourself move through the creation of the piece of art and have fun with it. But metrics, we interpret the metrics as gauges. We use them to base the worth of our art. And if one video gets 5 likes and the other gets 5 million likes, we know which of the videos is better just by looking at the metrics. And that is not true. We have our twisted conception and twisted interpretation of art, as is very clear from everything I've said. So this level of perfection or this level of curation that social media kind of demands from our art leads us to either holding ourselves back from creating the art because we don't feel perfect enough to create it. We don't feel like it's shaping up to the standard that social media wants us to give it. And we end up not creating art, and this leads to us feeling miserable, as we've said. So, what if you choose to judge your art by metrics? What do you lose? What do you stand to lose when you choose to judge your art by how many likes, how many views, how many streams, plays, downloads, how much numbers, how many numbers it can rack up? What do you stand to lose? Firstly, what is the essence of creating? The essence of creating is the process of creating. Let me take a very simple example. If you are someone who likes to cook, something like, let's say, making chapati. Chapati is a Kenyan meal, right? It's dough. You need unga, which is dough. You need water. You need salt, sugar, and you need to knead it with your very hands. So the process of creating chapati, if you're asked what is creating chapati, you will not say creating chapati is, serving the chapati onto a plate. Creating chapati is taking the flour, using the flour, mixing it with water, creating the dough, adding oil, rolling it out, creating smaller balls, rolling out the small balls of dough, creating small pieces of chapati, adding oil, frying them on a frying pan, and eventually serving them. That is the process of creating chapati. So the essence of creating is the process of creating. If we did not have processes, if things would just happen at the click of a button, like I want to create chapati, you just put the ingredients in front of you, snap your fingers, and you have ready-made chapati. It's nice, steaming, hot, having perfect layers, perfect color. Then we would not find value in that. Everything would be bland and everything would lose its meaning in a way if we did not have processes and if creating was an instant thing. So if you judge your art by metrics, you lose the essence of creating, which is the process. And now the thing about this process is it's messy. Like, it's so messy. There's so many things to unlearn, so many things to learn. There's so many ways you will go wrong while you're creating. There's so many things you will do wrong that you'll have to erase. You'll get a lot of dough on your hands and your hands will be sticky and you'll have to keep on kneading until you actually get the right consistency. There is a lot of failure involved in the process of creating. And so when we're busy curating our art for an algorithm that does not forgive us for being imperfect and for being amateur, then we are losing the process of creating, because the algorithm doesn't want your imperfection or your amateur work. So what is the point of creating if I cannot just be a professional? I cannot just create perfect art. What is the point of creating art? The point of creating art is the process of creating art. So if you're creating for metrics, you lose that. And that is the most important bit, because it does something to you. Number two, you lose the connection to your art. As we've said, the art and the artist are like this. They are connected. They are connected. And I believe one of the most powerful things in art is this connection to its creator. No matter how far away the art is from you, it has a piece of you. It has your signature. It has your fingerprint. It has your thread tying it all together. The art itself is almost a symbol of yourself. It's like when you're creating art, you're creating micro versions of yourself that you get to see outside of yourself. And so this connection to your art is built through the process of creating it. You don't just get connected to art because the art suddenly appeared. All of a sudden you had a piece of art and you know you're the one who's made it, but you don't even know how you made it. You don't know the process. You've not sat with it, made it time and time again, sketched over and over, erased. Maybe you're crocheting, maybe you're knitting. You've not had to unravel the work. Then you're not connected to the art, because you have not gone through the process of creating the art. And if you're not connected to the art, then the art doesn't feel like it's yours. It might as well be someone else's art. The essence of it is for you to be connected to it. It's just like when someone is pregnant. The pregnancy period is an important period because it forms a bond between the mother and the child. If it was not important for that bond to be formed even prior to birth, then babies will just be conceived and born in 2 days, 1 day, overnight, something like that. But the process is important, and it seems as if our universe is a universe of processes and stages and things slowly and gradually progressing. So think of it as if creating art, the process of creating art, is being pregnant with the output of the art. And so you have to form a connection, and that period of creating, that period of pregnancy with the art, is a period of you getting to be more connected with the art. If you create art for metrics, you lose originality, because as we've said, you have to craft your art for the algorithm. You lose originality, you lose your sense of adventure, you lose your sense of play and exploration, which is generally really important for creating art that is meaningful to you. You need to have fun with it, such that when you're finished creating it, you look at it and you remember the process, and you just feel so connected and fulfilled and proud of the art that you've created. Metrics. When you create for metrics, you lose the sacredness of art. Art is such a sacred thing. It's a spiritual act almost, in a way, and tying that to engagement and metrics just makes it lose all of its sacredness, all of its ritualness and its spirituality. Because if you think about it, art has been there for the longest time ever, and art is literally everywhere you look. It's like in the fabric of reality, art exists everywhere. You can see art in almost everything that you look at. Art is color, art is texture, art is sound, art is movement, art is form, art is writing, art is smell, art is cooking, baking, art is almost everything, I can say. And so when you're just crafting this really diverse thing to be optimized for engagement, you are losing the sacredness of it. When you're creating something to be seen, you are losing the ritual of creating. You're losing the process and the spirituality behind just sitting down or going somewhere to create a piece of art. Because, for example, let's say you want to paint a picture, but you want to paint it in a dim room with, let's say, some candles and just a nice atmosphere. But you realize you cannot film that because it's in a dark room. So you take it to a brighter space so that you can be able to film it. It's not the best example, but it's going to work for this scenario. You find that you have now lost the ritual around it. The ritual was putting up your candles, lighting the candles one at a time, closing the curtains, closing the windows, having that dim atmosphere, then maybe burning some sage and taking your pencil and sketching and doing some art and maybe playing a little bit of music. But now, because you want to film it, you want to craft it for engagement, you have to take away the ritual part of it, and you now have to take it to a space that completely obliterates the ritual bit of it, and it's no longer sacred and spiritual, and it's no longer something you're connected to and something that you are engaging in while literally feeling it through your system. It's something that you're doing to be able to just capture it and optimize it. And if you look at how much you're losing versus how much you're gaining, there's a really big difference. I think to be able to even connect with everything I'm saying in this episode, you just kind of need to understand the importance of art. I don't know whether I see art as important simply because I'm an artist or not, but I think everyone is in a sense an artist. It's just that sometimes you find you have not tapped into that side of yourself. It's not right to think of art as just drawing, coloring, and sketching, and maybe singing. Art is so diverse. Art is in everything we do. It's in how you blink your eyes. It's in how you speak, the speed of your voice. It's in how you walk. It's in how you create your outfits. It's in how you do your little things. It's in your very movement through life. Art is in everything. And I'm not saying this to sound dreamy and all that, but literally art is in everything that we do. It's in the world around us. And that's why it's very important. Art is what makes our lives feel richer. Taking time to create art, taking time to sit down and craft yourself into a piece of art is so important. And I feel like art is also a mirror of our inner worlds, our inner feelings, and not just our inner worlds and our inner feelings, but what is going on around us, what is in our environment. In the very book that I have kept on referencing, Benjamin Walter said that art reveals truths about our existence that we didn't even notice while we were living them. You find that in a piece of art, someone just drawing something that they're not really trying to convey a message about a certain thing. They are just drawing something. Maybe they're drawing a landscape. You find that years on, that piece of art is used to tell a whole story about how the world was at that time. And whoever was painting it was probably just, painting from observation or just painting from imagination. But of course, the imagination is rooted in the experiences that they have in their environment. And you find that that piece of art is used to tell a story that they never even intended to tell. Art sees the details that we miss in our own lives. We literally put the details in the art, but we don't notice them in our lives. And it's so true. And I think that the fact that art is very subjective just makes it even more beautiful, because if you give 10 people one piece of art, each of them will see a different interpretation in the art. And that interpretation will be kind of tied to who they are and tied to the way their inner worlds are. And it's this quality of art being subjective that I feel like makes art connect and heal us. Heal not just the artist, but also those who are interacting with the art. I'll give you a simple example. Have you ever heard a song and you just felt like it was written for you? The words, the music, the pacing, everything just feels like it was made for you. And literally, you do not know the people who made the art. You don't know them on a personal level. You probably know the name of the artist and you love the artist, but you do not know them. You're not acquainted with them. You did not tell them to write the song for you. They wrote the song probably for themselves, but you see yourself in it. Are you getting it? Things heal, things that we connect to, things that heal us, which were not necessarily made to heal us, but they end up healing us. It can be a song, it can be a painting, it can even be a piece of jewelry. You find yourself connected to a certain piece of jewelry maybe because of how unique it is. Maybe the stone on the jewelry reminds you of moss or reminds you of a river that is in your home's countryside. Maybe it reminds you of the clouds. Maybe the texture of your favorite skirt, your favorite dress, your favorite pair of jeans, your favorite outfit reminds you of something. Maybe there's a smell that reminds you of someone. There's a smell that reminds you of a memory that you can't quite place. And you see, art is in the middle of all this. Art is in the fabric, art is in the clothing, the jewelry, the painting, the song, the music. And you find that you will connect with specific pieces of art when they're created intentionally. You will not connect to a song that, is trending and being hyped as much as you would connect with it when no one else knows it but you. Like, no one who you know knows the song. You find that these small pieces of music, of art, of paintings that are less known, less popularized, you can be able to connect with them more. That is, if you're someone who's intentional and a bit introspective, you try and find those little pieces of niche media, niche art, and you find connection inside of them, instead of the things which are popularized and the things which trend. We create to not just heal others, but to heal ourselves, to communicate, to decorate time, to ensure that the world does not forget us, to ensure that we leave our fingerprint on the earth. And we also create to breathe. We create to feel. We create to allow emotions to pass through our systems. We create to make our lives richer. We create to enrich the human experience. We create to connect with others. We create to make others see themselves in our art. We create to show that we are alive. We create to express ourselves. We create to express sides of ourselves which are repressed. We create for so many different reasons. I can keep going. We can make it a rap. We can go on and on and on. But the point I'm trying to put across is that art is much more important than what our modern world makes it seem like. Your art is never supposed to be based on metrics. Your art cannot be based on numbers and money and currency. Your art has no value that is countable. Your art is subjective, it's infinite, and it's valued based on the one who is experiencing it. It can be you, it can be someone else. And your art should never have to be scaled and to be given worth or not. You don't have to gauge the worth of your art, because art for the sake of art. Art for the sake of art. Create art for the sake of art. Create art to move, to breathe, to see the world, to feel the world, to show how you interact with the world. And the more I think about creating this day and age, the more I realize just how much you need to tune it back to yourself, tune it back to creating for yourself, and source joy from that. Because there's so much joy when you're just creating for yourself, when you're creating not to prove anything to anyone, but to just exist. Maybe the most radical thing we can do in this age is to create something that no one else will see, and just let that be enough. To create art as proof that we were alive. To create art as proof that we were existing and breathing. Art as proof that I was here. Thank you for sitting in with me for this podcast episode. I feel so nice. I don't have the word for it, okay? Language is so limiting, by the way. I do not have the word for what I'm feeling, but I feel nice. Okay, let's summarize it into that. I'm glad I've been able to relay this. I hope it came out as I was thinking of it. I hope it came out in the way that I wanted it to. And I will see you guys in the next episode. This was a lovely one to film. It is currently the 1st of March. This year is flying by way too fast at 2:13 p.m. From me to you, have a lovely rest of your day, evening, morning, afternoon, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.